It was October 12, 1973, when Johnny Carson did something nobody expected on live TV. He refused to shake Clint Eastwood's hand right there on The Tonight Show, shocking 30 million viewers. People saw Ed McMahon's cigarette fall from his mouth, Clint's hand hanging in the air, and absolute silence crashing over the studio. But this wasn't disrespect. Carson kept a promise he'd made 21 years earlier on a frozen Korean hillside. A promise to Sergeant William Dutch Morrison, a man who'd saved both their lives and begged them never to speak his name. And now, as Dutch lay dying of lung cancer in an Iowa VA hospital, he'd finally released them from that vow with his last telegram. Carson knew America needed to hear the truth. Johnny got that urgent telegram the afternoon before the show. His hands shook as he read Dutch's words. "Johnny, it's Dutch Morrison. I'm dying. Stage 4 lung cancer. VA hospital, Cedar Rapids. Doctors say 2 weeks maximum. Clint Eastwood is booked on your show tomorrow. Before you shake his hand, there's something America needs to know about Korea, about what really happened on Hill 418, about the promise we three made. I'm releasing you both from your oath. Tell them the truth. They need to know we existed. Tell them the forgotten soldiers mattered." Carson dropped his cigarette instantly. He thought of the metal box in his desk drawer, the one holding Dutch's Purple Heart, his photograph from Seoul, and his dog tags. For 21 years, Dutch had vanished after the war, serving 3 tours in Korea and 2 in Vietnam, while Carson and Eastwood became famous. He never asked for his medal back. Now Dutch was dying alone, and he'd torn up their silence. Carson called Clint Eastwood's agent immediately. Clint got the same telegram. His answer was simple: "It's time. Dutch earned this." Both men rewrote their plans that night. Carson tucked Dutch's Purple Heart into his jacket. Clint turned a worn military compass over in his hands in California. Neither knew Dutch's telegram held one final secret waiting to explode live on air. October 12th arrived. Carson locked himself in his dressing room for an hour, unusual for him. Ed McMahon knocked, worried. "Johnny, you all right in there?" Carson's voice sounded strained. "I'm fine, Ed. Just trust me tonight. Something's going to happen and I need you to roll with it." Down the hall, Clint sat tense in the green room, clutching that old compass. When Carson passed by, they shared a single nod, the kind only soldiers who've survived hell understand. "Tonight we break 21 years of silence." The show started normally, jokes about Watergate, gas prices, Helen Reddy singing, but Ed noticed Johnny constantly touching his pocket. During the break, Carson pulled the producer close. "When Clint comes out, don't cut to commercial no matter what happens. I don't care if we run over. Keep those cameras rolling." Ed whispered, "Johnny, you're sweating. You never sweat." Carson finally turned to his oldest friend. "Ed, in 4 minutes you'll learn something about me I've never told you. I'm sorry it took this long." Then Clint's music hit. "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Clint Eastwood." The audience roared. Clint walked out with his trademark cool, but his right hand stayed buried in his pocket. He extended his left hand toward Carson's desk. Johnny stood up, looked straight at that left hand, locked eyes with Clint, and said clearly into the mic, "Not this time, Clint." Gasps filled the room. Ed's cigarette tumbled to the floor. Total silence stretched for 3 endless seconds. The orchestra stopped mid-note. Carson reached into his jacket and pulled out the Purple Heart. "This doesn't belong to me," he said, his Tonight Show smile gone. "This is Sergeant William Morrison's Purple Heart. Right now, Dutch Morrison is lying in a hospital bed at the Cedar Rapids VA with stage 4 lung cancer. His doctors say he has less than 2 weeks to live." Audience members inhaled sharply. You could feel their shock through the screen. Carson turned to Clint. "He sent you a telegram too, didn't he?" Clint nodded, pulled out the silver compass. "Yeah, he did." Ed whispered, utterly lost. "Johnny, what is this?" Carson faced the camera, speaking directly to America. "Before I shake Clint's hand, you need to hear about the bravest man I ever met. A man who made us promise never to speak his name. For 21 years we kept that vow. But Dutch released us because he's dying, and he wants America to know men like him existed." He gestured for Clint to sit. "This wasn't an interview, it was a reckoning." Carson began. "December 14th, 1951. Seoul, South Korea. I was a 26-year-old Navy ensign. Clint was a 21-year-old Army private, terrified every day." Clint's voice surprised everyone, admitting fear on national TV. "Yeah, I was scared out of my mind." They described meeting Dutch Morrison, a 6'4" Nebraska farm boy who became their protector at a Seoul USO bar. "Dutch bought us drinks," Carson said, his voice thick. "Told stories that made us laugh for the first time in months. Then he looked us dead in the eyes and said, 'War is going to take enough from you. Don't let it take your humanity." Then Carson's voice dropped. February 8th, 1952, Hill 418. His grip tightened on the Purple Heart. Chinese forces hit hard at 2 a.m. I watched from a bunker. Clint was trapped in a supply depot with no cover. Clint's eyes filled. I knew I was dead. Carson continued. Dutch's unit got orders to fall back, but Dutch saw Clint pinned down, saw me trying to reach him, so he disobeyed orders. Ran straight into enemy fire. Clint's voice cracked. He reached me first, dragged me toward the bunker. Johnny ran out. Navy, but no hesitation. Carson looked at Clint. A lifetime of silence dissolved in that glance. Dutch took command when we were surrounded, manned a machine gun himself, took 3 bullets, but kept fighting until dawn. Sobs echoed through the studio. Carson's voice broke. In the medevac, he looked up at Clint and me and said, "You two are going to make it. You're going to do something that matters. Promise me you'll make it count." We promised right there. Eastwood added through tears. Then he swore us to silence. "Don't tell anyone about Hill 418. If you get famous, don't make me part of your story. The minute my name hits the papers, they'll pull me out of combat. There are 18-year-old kids who need someone who knows how to keep them alive." So we promised. Shook his hand and never spoke his name publicly. Carson held up the Purple Heart. "Dutch gave me this. Told me to hold it until he asked back. He never did. Kept serving. 23 years total. Retired in '68. No wife. No medals on his wall. Nothing. Meanwhile, Clint and I built careers while knowing it was because a Nebraska farm boy bled for us." He pulled out Dutch's telegram. "Yesterday he released us. He wrote, 'I'm dying. Tell America the truth. Tell them the forgotten soldiers mattered.'" Then Carson stood. Eastwood stood with him. "Dutch didn't just free us from silence," Carson declared. "He gave us one final mission, and we're completing it now." He read Dutch's requests. "First, Johnny, use your show to tell Korean War stories. Interview veterans. Make them visible." Carson turned to Clint. "Second, you make tough guy movies. Make one about Korea. Show what it was really like." Clint spoke straight to camera, tears glistening. "I give you my word, Dutch. That film gets made." Carson continued. "Third, create something lasting. A fund. Something that takes care of Korean War vets who came home broken." He locked eyes with Clint. Both men nodded. Carson announced, "Tonight, we're launching the Dutch Morrison Veterans Fund. Clint and I are each pledging $50,000 to start. Mission: support Korean War vets with medical care and family help." The studio erupted, but Carson held up a hand. "We're not done." He signaled off camera. "Get me Sergeant Morrison's room at the Cedar Rapids VA. Now." America held its breath as the call connected. Doc Severinsen played soft music. The phone rang over the speakers. A nurse answered. "Cedar Rapids VA Oncology Ward." Carson's voice softened, unrecognizable from his Tonight Show tone. "This is Johnny Carson. I need to speak with Sergeant William Morrison. It's urgent." 30 agonizing seconds passed. Then a weak, raspy voice filled the speakers. "Johnny." Gasps turned to sobs heard nationwide. Carson's voice wavered. "Dutch, I'm here with Clint. We're on the Tonight Show. 30 million people are watching." A fragile pause, then, You told them." Eastwood leaned in, voice raw. "We told them everything, Sergeant. Hill 418. The promise. All of it." Dutch's whisper carried overwhelming relief. "You didn't have to do this." Carson's reply was fierce. "Yes, we did. You earned it. You earned all of it." He added, "We're launching a fund in your name tonight." Dutch whispered, "I just didn't want to die forgotten. I didn't want all of us to be forgotten." Eastwood spoke next, reduced to a trembling man. "You will never be forgotten, Dutch. We promise you that." Carson added, "Thank you for keeping us alive. Thank you for making us promise to live well." Dutch's final words were a whisper of pure peace. "Thank you, both of you. You became the men I knew you'd become." The line went silent. The camera held on Johnny and Clint standing face to face. This time, when Eastwood extended his right hand, Carson grasped it. Not a Hollywood handshake, but a soldier's forearm grip. They held it for 10 full seconds, tears streaming down both faces. Television would never be the same. That night, NBC switchboards lit up with calls flooding in faster than operators could handle. By sunrise, every news network led with Dutch's story. The Morrison Fund got $47,000 in day one donations. Phone lines jammed with vets, families, everyday Americans rediscovering a war they'd forgotten. VA hospitals reported thousands showing up, asking specifically about Korean War vets. In Cedar Rapids, nurses said Dutch watched the broadcast crying for an hour, repeating, "They did it. They really did it." 2 days later, Carson and Eastwood flew to Iowa. They interviewed Dutch for 8 hours, his first full account ever. Weak from cancer at just 140 pounds, he spoke calmly. When I saw what Johnny and Clint became, I knew my life meant something. He showed Carson his scrapbook, Tonight Show reviews, Eastwood film clippings saved for 2 decades. Dutch smiled weakly. I watched every show I could catch. Saw every Clint movie. I was proud of you boys. Eastwood's voice caught. We were just trying to be worthy of what you gave us. Dutch looked at him with eyes holding too much war. You were always worthy. From that first night in Seoul, I knew I saw something in you both. On October 24th, just 10 days after the show, Dutch died. Carson and Eastwood were at his bedside. His last words were a whisper. Tell them, tell all the forgotten soldiers they mattered. Johnny closed Dutch's eyes, placed the Purple Heart on his chest. Clint set the silver compass in his hand. Both stood rigidly at attention and saluted. At his Cedar Rapids funeral, over 2,000 people showed up, amazing for a town of 110,000. Carson gave the eulogy. Dutch asked us for 21 years to stay silent. Now we promise he'll be remembered. Clint read Dutch's final telegram aloud. The gravestone, paid for by the Morrison Fund, read, Sergeant William Dutch Morrison, 1930 to 1973, U.S. Army, Korea, 1951 to 1955. Vietnam, 1965 to 1968. He saved the lives of soldiers and the souls of stars. The legacy exploded fast. The Morrison Fund raised $2.3 million in year one, helping 847 vets with medical bills and housing. Johnny featured Korean War vets on his show once a month for 19 years until retirement. Clint made Letters from Choesong in '75. A Best Picture nominee opening with For Sergeant Dutch Morrison, who taught us courage is keeping your promise, even when the world forgets. Carson and Eastwood appeared together every October 12th for 20 years, always telling Dutch's story. By '92, the fund had helped over 12,000 veterans and raised $47 million. When the Korean War Memorial opened in '95, Dutch's name was engraved among the honored dead. Carson and Eastwood stood side by side there too. Every February 8th, the Hill 418 anniversary, they called each other across the globe, sharing just 2 words. We remembered. This story isn't just about TV history. It's about tens of thousands like Dutch. The men and women who served in Korea came home to a nation ignoring them and carried their trauma alone. Dutch spent 21 years believing his sacrifices meant nothing. It took 2 famous men shattering their silence to prove him wrong. Think about it. Dutch's telegram didn't ask for money or fame. He demanded visibility for his brothers in arms. Tell them the forgotten soldiers mattered. That phrase ignited a movement because Carson and Eastwood understood his deepest fear wasn't death, it was dying without legacy. They transformed a personal promise into national reckoning. Why does this hit us 50 years later? Because we're drowning in curated social feeds while real sacrifice goes unseen. Dutch represents every veteran who returned quietly, suffering silently, convinced their service went unnoticed. His story asks you, who are the Dutch Morrisons in your life? That co-worker with a Purple Heart hidden in a drawer? The neighbor who never talks about Saigon? Today's algorithms decide who gets seen, but real legacy is built through intentional action. The Morrison Fund worked because Carson and Eastwood didn't just write checks. They used their platforms relentlessly, monthly show features, an Oscar-nominated film, to redirect attention where it mattered most. Real change isn't hashtags. It's recording a veteran's story for the Library of Congress, donating to groups like the Korean War Veterans Memorial Foundation, or simply asking, what was your service like? And truly listening. Here's the urgent truth. Of America's 1.7 million Korean War vets, fewer than 400,000 remain alive, all in their 90s now. Dutch's terror wasn't death, it was that his meaning would die with him. I didn't want to die forgotten, he told Carson live on TV. That should haunt you. How many Dutch Morrisons are fading away right now in VA hospitals, thinking nobody cares? The Morrison Fund's explosive start, $47,000 in day one donations during pre-internet 1973, proves America wants to remember when given the chance. We just need the trigger, the not this time moment that focuses national attention. So here's what Dutch Morrison's story demands of you. Don't wait for a dying telegram. Don't assume veterans want to forget. A recent VA study showed 78% of aging veterans want to share their experiences, but fear burdening others. Carson's "not this time" moment gave Dutch permission to finally accept gratitude. So ask that question you've avoided. Grandpa, what was Korea really like? Record it, share it. Not for likes, but because Dutch waited 21 years to hear "you mattered." You hold unprecedented power right now. Digitize fading photo albums. Create private family archives. Tag veterans organizations so algorithms boost their visibility. This isn't nostalgia, it's preserving living history. When Clint made his film, he forced Hollywood to confront a neglected war. In our era, honoring Dutch means demanding better representation. Streaming services have entire World War II and Vietnam categories. Where's the Korean War section? Demand it. Support indie films telling those stories. Because Dutch was right. War takes enough. Don't let it take their humanity through erasure. Johnny Carson honored Dutch by staying silent for 21 years. Then he honored him again by speaking up. That's the balance we need today. Listening deeply and amplifying fiercely. Dutch's final request was never about him. It was about all the forgotten soldiers. His genius was knowing Carson and Eastwood's fame could spotlight the collective, not just the individual. Today, imagine if just 1% of YouTube users interviewed one veteran and uploaded it. We'd have millions of preserved stories, a living archive no official record could match. Dutch believed in action over applause. So don't just feel moved, act. Find a local Korean War veteran through your VA office. Call them. Ask, what do you wish people knew? Then share it. Not for clout, but because on a frozen hill in 1952, a man chose obscurity so others could live, and he deserves to be remembered exactly as he was. The story ends where it began, every February 8th. After Carson died in 2005, Eastwood kept calling Dutch's VA hospital, leaving voicemails. We remembered. In 2015, Eastwood stood at Dutch's grave in Cedar Rapids, placing a single Nebraska wildflower on the stone. That epitaph holds the secret. He saved the lives of soldiers and the souls of stars. Dutch didn't just save bodies on Hill 418, he preserved humanity. He saw potential in two scared kids and made them guardians of a greater truth. Fame means nothing if it doesn't lift others up. Carson and Eastwood proved that by becoming Morrison's megaphone when he finally needed one. The most powerful moment wasn't the refused handshake. It was the 10-second grip that followed. In that military clasp, they honored years of silence and the courage to break it. It was their living promise. You asked to be forgotten. We refused to let you disappear. Dutch Morrison's telegram passed the story to us now. So let's do what Carson and Eastwood did. Turn witnessing into action. Find a veteran, ask their story, share it. Because sometimes the greatest promises are kept not in silence, but when we finally say what needs saying. Not this time, not anymore. The silent heroes are waiting, and they matter. Tell them you remember.